May we take roll?
Commissioner Bushy?
Here.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Here.
Commissioner Perry? Here. Commissioner Amino? Mayor Casselli?
Here, we have a quorum. Before I start, we are assured that these microphones are going to project well enough that you can hear in the back, so we've been told not to yell about what's blowing you out of the back. So if you can't hear, let us know. Next item is public hearing, solicitation of public comments on the request by Mr. Thomas Perlman to obtain a liquor license for a proposed restaurant at 24242 Woodward Avenue, Pleasant Ridge, Michigan. Sheriff.
Mayor, City Commission, and residents, the purpose of the public hearing this evening is to consider the request by Thomas Perlman for a Class C liquor license. The city's liquor control ordinance requires that a public hearing be held prior to any consideration of the license. And also, as required by law, the notice was published in the local newspaper, and letters were mailed to all properties in the city of Pleasant Ridge. Earlier this year, I received an application for the liquor license from Mr. Perlman. He purchased the building that's commonly known as Fields Art Studio, the former location of Fields. And his proposal was to develop a mixed-use establishment that included 3 spaces for either retail or professional office, and then one of the spaces would be used to develop a restaurant. His idea was that it would be a bistro-style restaurant, and his desire was to obtain a liquor license from the city for that. I met first with the city's planning consultant, the chairman of the Planning Commission and DDA, Mr. Perlman, and we reviewed his ideas and his plans, and from there a conceptual plan was developed. I know, and everyone knows, that there are some real issues that will have to be addressed. Specifically, what we talked about on the initial meeting was the concern about parking and the concern about hours of operation. Those are always the first 2 items that are of immediate concern. Nonetheless, Mr. Perlman felt like this would be something that would complement the city, and looking at it with the planning consultant and the chairman of the planning and DDA, it is in keeping with the master plan and the vision for the Woodward Avenue corridor. What the City Commission must consider this evening is whether or not it has an interest in issuing a liquor license. And by doing that, then the next step would be for Mr. Perlman to comply with all the requirements of the site plan review process. Site plan reviews are under the purview of the Planning Commission, and it is during that phase where parking, lighting, signage, hours of operation, and all the details of a new restaurant would be examined and reviewed and discussed. I did provide you a copy of the conceptual plan, and in my discussions, I understand that the establishment would be somewhere around a 75-person restaurant. He also has plans to add an outdoor patio area, if that's something that's possible. And the hours of operation that's proposed is during the week until 12:30 a.m. and on the weekends till 2 a.m. I will just tell you briefly about Mr. Perlman. He is here this evening. He is a well-known and well-respected businessman in this area. He owns approximately 20 different establishments in the city of Ferndale, and I did receive a letter of reference from the former mayor, Craig Covey of Ferndale, the current mayor, Dave Coulter, and the DDA director in Ferndale, Christina Shepard-DeSassis. Mr. Perlman also served on the Ferndale DDA for about 12 years, and as I said, he's actively involved in the community, and I think that is something that he wants to bring to Pleasant Ridge as well, to be actively involved as a member and business partner in our community. I could tell you a little bit about the building, but I think most people are familiar with it. The portion of the building that is being considered for the restaurant is approximately 3,000 square feet. And then again, there are 3 additional sections for different kind of use for the building. In my recommendation to the City Commission and in the motion that I prepared for you this evening to consider, it is to grant the liquor license conditioned upon certain things. And I did so because there is no risk if the City Commission either authorizes the next step, and that is to proceed to site plan review, or to grant the liquor license as long as it is conditioned upon approval of the site plan. That's an extensive process, it's very involved, and there's an additional public hearing required. I know that our city commissioner liaison is Commissioner Bushy. I also know that Commissioner Perry regularly attends the Planning Commission meetings, and I know that Commissioner Rubino would want to be involved in the site plan process as well. So there would be representation from the elected officials on the City Commission, and it would also be open to residents for their feedback and input on all of the issues that I previously mentioned. I will probably recommend that the Planning Commission move their meetings to the community center during this process, because I would expect that there would be a good number of people that would want to attend. I know just in the past week, in addition to comments that we've received via email, by phone, and people that stop by, it seems certainly that the most comments I received was on parking, and then second to that was hours of operation. And again, those are things and the responsibility of the Planning Commission to examine and review. It may or may not come back to the City Commission for consideration of issuing a liquor license. It would all depend on the outcome of the Planning Commission.
But Sherry, wouldn't it have to come back to us for approval of the development and operational agreement?
Only if the site plan approval was granted. So if the proposal fails at the Planning Commission level, you would not see it again. But yes.
Can we ask that cell phones be either put on silence or shut off for the rest of the hearing? So if site plan approval were granted, then still nothing would happen until the City Commission approved the development and operation agreement.
That's correct. That is the process. I will tell you that our planning consultant, Mr. John Ecoangeli, is here. The chairman of our Planning Commission and DDA, Mark Bolash, is here. And again, Mr. Perlman is here.
Mr. Perlman, would you care to address us and outline your proposal before we open the public hearing?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Tom Perlman, and I am the applicant in this matter. As Ms. Ball stated, last year I purchased the Field Art Studio building. It was a foreclosure situation. The building is in serious disrepair. I have divided it into 2 projects. We're proceeding right now, if you've noticed the activity on the north 5,500 square feet of the building, renovating that space. You may have noticed the windows are in the process of being put in the new front windows and frames. The southern section of this building is approximately 3,000 square feet. It had been vacant, my understanding is, for many years. It's unoccupiable, and this is the space that we're proposing putting a small 70-seat bistro-style restaurant called The Ridge. I guess at this point would ask that you accept the recommendation of the city manager, allow us to move ahead with our plans, subject to, of course, the city planning commission's approval, the public hearing that accompanies that, along with your final approval by your commission. I think that it would be I'm looking forward to working with the city administration, elected officials, and the residents to put together a plan that will create a business that not only I can be proud of, but I think will be an asset to the city of Pleasant Ridge.
Now, Mr. Perlman, are you the sole owner, majority owner? What would be your ownership in the operating entity?
I am the sole owner and operator.
Okay. And I had to Google bistro, so would you tell us what you mean by bistro?
Well, I look at it as a quaint European style restaurant.
Thank you. Mr. Archelangeli, do you have anything you want to add before I open the public hearing? Mr. Bolash?
Mayor, City Commissioners. My name is Mark Bolash. I'm the chairman of the Pleasant Ridge Downtown Development Authority. And I just have a quick statement that I want to read to you and put on the record. So, as you know, or may know, part of our mission as a DDA is to prevent the deterioration and decline of the downtown area, to strengthen and promote existing areas and businesses, and to encourage new development and business in the downtown district. I've had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Perlman. I'm also aware of his successful properties in the neighboring city and also his solid reputation with our DDA. His commitment to the beautification of his properties has been well established. As a member of the Pleasant Ridge DDA, I feel it's important to attract and retain business owners such as Mr. Perlman. This will allow our city to reduce the number of vacancies and help retain the charm of a vibrant downtown area. Please note that I'm not standing here to make a statement either for or against the issuance of a liquor license. I am solely here to state the DDA's support of business owners willing to invest their time and money to help our city grow, because we will not be able to maintain a charming and welcoming downtown area without their help. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mark, is wearing your hat is for the DDA. You're also chairman of the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
I am, yes.
Mayor Castelli and members of the City Commission, don't want to really belabor some of the comments that have been made by Ms. Ball and Mr. Perlman, but the discussions that we had in advance of this.
Are you having trouble hearing back there?
Okay, here, can you hear me now?
Okay. To lean forward, I guess.
The initial conversations that we had with the applicant months ago, when Mr. Perlman was actually considering the acquisition of the building and exploring different options, we laid out for him a process that we thought was very community-driven and contained an appropriate mix of administrative review and community engagement. The process that we mapped out for this application was that the first step would be the public hearing for the consideration of the liquor license, because without some indication that that would be granted, there would be no need to proceed with a more detailed and structured review required by the zoning ordinance for site plan review. And then after that, the subsequent operations and development plan that would have to be reviewed and approved by the City Commission. And all along that process, there would be opportunities for the community to be engaged in the decision-making. We also outlined for the applicant the concerns that we had and the balance that we try to achieve here in the community. One of the reasons why Pleasant Ridge has not seen the success that Ferndale and Royal Oak have seen over the years in terms of commercial revitalization is the configuration of the commercial lots, many of which are narrow in terms of their width and exposure on Woodward Avenue, but more importantly, their depth. Many of them are only 100 feet deep, some are 150 feet deep, and they abut residential, and they're challenged by parking along, the lack of parking on Woodward Avenue, the rate of speed of the vehicles, and then also the lack of parking behind the buildings. So Pleasant Ridge has not seen the success of Ferndale and Royal Oak because we don't have the configuration needed to really support some of the retail activities. So we addressed that with the applicant, that it would be a balance between making the appropriate improvements to the buildings, but at the same time, balancing the concerns that we've had over the years that have been expressed in several of the master plans and the surveys that have been done of balancing the responsibility that we have to protect the residential character in the neighborhoods that abut the commercial areas. And I think to a degree, over the years, that has been done. But we did stress that to the applicant, that as we move through the process, there will be a balancing between commercial revitalization and neighborhood preservation. And that balance comes in between several factors. 1, parking. 2, hours of operation. 3, the overall occupancy of the building. And there are some other concerns that have been expressed in our administrative review meetings in terms of waste, collection and disposal, exterior lighting and signage. So, I mean, we have reviewed these in general terms with the applicant. He is aware of our concerns, but we really can't get into the discussion of those until we get into the site plan review process, where we actually put pen to paper, start running the calculations, start engaging the community in greater conversation relative to how to solve some of these problems, or in a positive way, how to exercise these opportunities that are being presented to the community. So this is kind of the first step in a path that we've laid out for the applicant in terms of making the presentation or the application for the liquor license and then proceeding from this point forward. So I just wanted to reiterate what the manager had said, and what the audience needs to hear is that this is a process that will undergo additional public review if the liquor license application is granted with contingencies at several other public meetings when we can get into all the specifics of the plan. Thank you, Mr.
One point, John, before you leave. In reporting on the hours of operation, the end hours of operation was reported, but I believe the opening time is 4 p.m. all days. So from the standpoint of stress on parking, there's not the overlap with the bulk of the business day.
Correct. It's a shared parking. Without getting into specifics, we did discuss that with Mr. Perlman is aware of that, and that's one of the reasons his application does show 4 o'clock, because in a retail environment, different times of operation, typically offices are 8 to 5, retail sometimes can be 10 to 7, restaurants tend to be 4, 5 o'clock until midnight, and there's joint utilization of the same parking spaces back and forth. There are calculations based on national studies of what that overlap is, but we haven't even got into those calculations yet at this point in time, because we really, it's a concept plan. It's not a site plan at this point. Okay?
And then a couple last housekeeping items, John, I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor.
One, when you come to the microphone, please introduce yourself with your name and your address. Secondly, while everybody sees Ted here with the camera, this is not being broadcast live, but will be rebroadcast starting sometime tomorrow. Scott? We have never had much success with broadcasting live from this building. So, with that, I'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Good evening, Ms. Perlman. I'm your neighbor, Floyd Devonshire. Nice to finally meet you. So as I said, I'm Kevin McCutcheon of Fort Devonshire. I do want to make it plain that although I'm a member of the Planning Commission and DDA, I'm speaking strictly as a resident tonight. I know that much about to say may be interpreted as not in my backyard kind of stuff, but this development literally is in my backyard. The closest part of my home to this bar is our master bedroom. But before I go much further, I want to point out that most Devonshire residents welcome this development and look forward to the building having a new life. However, for more than 50 years, this area has been strictly retail and has always been acceptable to everyone in the area. It is a well-established tradition for our little section of town. We purchased our homes under those conditions and have every reason to expect that to continue. We are accustomed to business going on during the day and done by early in the evening. I know the minds of everyone at the end of my block and some on Wellesley, and a bar and restaurant is unanimously opposed. It is our greatest desire that these buildings all remain retail and not change the character of the neighborhood. Sorry, I'm getting a little passionate about this because it's going to drastically affect our property. Anyway, I'd like to take this opportunity to say that Janet and I have been consistent in this area. We opposed the liquor license for Cork because it was obvious that the parking was insufficient for such an establishment. According to what I and others have heard from Cork's neighbors, we've been proven correct. I know Ms. Ball will disagree with me, but just because she doesn't hear something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So let me put you all on notice. If this bar and restaurant goes in, Ms. Ball won't be suffering from any lack of complaints on this development. I could go into a lot of detail on parking, but the bottom line here is it's just impossible.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The bottom line, it's just impossible. You just can't put 20 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. With all the people you've got coming to this thing, you're going to have people parking all the way down Devonshire and Wellesley. So I'm sure everybody else will go into that in more detail. But a food establishment has a whole new set of problems the neighborhood hasn't had to put up with before: cooking, smells, smoke, noise, deliveries, large volumes of people, vermin. What may be personally annoying to us at our home is there will probably be a large contingent of people smoking out back of the bar, yakking and polluting at all hours. So I want to ask, what is the problem with 4 retail spaces? That would be welcomed by everyone. Keeping this all retail would resolve every issue with the neighborhood and be fully embraced by everyone. Why not do this instead? So in closing, I would ask of you that we depart from the Pleasant Ridge norm, which is to politely listen to the pleas of the citizens to say no to the proposal and then ignore them and vote yes to allow it. Let's take this opportunity to break with tradition and prove the stereotype wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wants to approach the microphone, you got up and stood in line, so you're next. After that, start raising your hands, and I'll try to keep track. This means I want to speak. This means I can't hear.
My name is Dave Beaver, and I live at 21 Poplar Park. I have just a question. What is a Class C liquor license?
Class C liquor license is the same as Cork presently has. This is beer and wine and alcohol.
So it's a full license.
It's a full license.
Thank you.
Sir.
My name is Don Sargent, and I represent my brother who owns 40 Ridge Road, and he totally approves of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Gentleman in the back. And then you, sir, with the, in front of Mr. McCutcheon, you'll be next.
Hi, my name is Brett Scott. I live at 6 Devonshire. Most of the back of my property adjoins the alley, and I look at the back side of the building every time I look out of my living room, dining room, or bedroom. So my great concern about the property is, as has been described by Mr. McCutcheon, the parking, I think, is going to be an issue all day, not just from 4 to noon or 4 to midnight. I'm concerned what the retail space will do for parking along the neighborhood, given that that adjoining parking space is largely full already during the day, at least what I've observed. So I don't know where the parking is going to go during the day. And in that period of time from 4 to 6, I think it's going to be mayhem, because it's already hard to get it out of the neighborhood based on normal Woodward traffic. And then in the evening, of course, the basic concerns are all of the things that have been mentioned: the noise, lighting I'm concerned about. It's getting dark earlier. I know it's going to get lighter in the back, and I'm going to have to buy curtains, or maybe he's going to have to buy curtains. I think it's going to be a large inconvenience for the neighborhood. And I agree that I believe the space should be developed. It's a wonderful location for the city to develop and to retail It's a great location for the city to develop into some other kind of business, but I'm greatly concerned that the plan or the proposal that has been presented just isn't feasible based on the parking that has been identified. The plan says 82, he just said 70. I don't know what the number really is. I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Francis Allen, and I live at 7 Devonshire. I served 42 years in the city of Detroit and retired as a deputy chief there. Much of my time was spent in charge of the Liquor License Bureau in Detroit. So I think I have a little bit of say-so in how liquor license. Most of the time in my
Part of the
endeavors-
police department, sir?
Pardon me?
Part of the police department, or which department?
42 years, and part of that time was in charge of the Detroit Liquor License Bureau.
Okay.
And so I have a lot of dealings with the Liquor Commission. I think I know a lot about liquor licenses. I certainly know a lot about bars and bistros and other places that I have been summoned to over my 42 years. Now, I've grown to love Pleasant Ridge since I've moved here. I like it. I have no objections to it. I have high esteem for this city. And I understand that progress is necessary, and we shouldn't stand in the way of progress, but there's a cost to progress. And I, as a resident of the city, and I would like to go on record as saying that I'm adamantly opposed, and you can underline the word adamant. I have nothing against the applicant, and his desire to better Pleasant Ridge, I give him very much credit. And I'm glad he's there to build that building up. However, there's a lot of pitfalls that I can see or that could materialize in the future unless they're addressed at this meeting today. And the number one issue I think has been brought up a couple of times, and that is parking. You know, I don't know how you can say 70 people and you're going to put parking there. I hope you don't disturb the entrance to Devonshire. It's a credit to the neighborhood. I like the way it comes in. I like the way it goes out. If you're going to put cars up there, our view is going to be impeded, and we're going to be looking at cars, and parking is going to be a real difficult problem. And today you don't have enough law enforcement, and if you put more law enforcement on your department, you better hire some more policemen, because there are going to be consequences to a cafe, and I'm not against what he's proposing. But I've also, in my experience, many times I've heard people say what they propose and what really happens later on. Or, as you might say, put your foot in the door. Once you get the door open, there's a lot of things that can happen. I respect Mr. Perlman and his endeavor, but I don't know what's going to happen after he gets into there as a liquor license. There's a lot of things he can do. And if you don't believe me, you look at some of the bars on 8 Mile Road that were allowed to go in there, and now Detroit and some of the other suburbs are having all kind of troubles with things that they never thought would happen. It was all put in there under the ruse of, well, it's betterment for the neighborhood. Well, frankly, I know that it's the revenue part of it. People are thinking about the revenue that Mr. Perlman's going to generate and what he might give to the city. But frankly, me as a taxpayer, I'd rather carry the brunt of the extra money that you're going to get from that development, and I'd rather pay it in my taxes than to have my neighborhood disturbed. Parking and traffic is going to be a very, very problematic, and I don't think you have the law enforcement, and they better hire a couple more policemen to handle the calls on weekends and at 2 o'clock in the morning. But, I hear about downtown development. That downtown, it's a main strip there. It's not like a city of Detroit where you got a metropolitan, you throw that word around, and it's important, but it's not really a district. It's not even a downtown. It's a strip there. And I don't want to berate the applicant's application. But I think the real prize in this whole thing is the liquor license. Once you get that, you know, you can do a lot of things. You can move it, you can alter what you promised. But, and I hope that is in his intention. But the word bistro, it comes in at bistro, but I don't know what's going to happen at 2 o'clock on Saturday night or 2 o'clock on Friday night. That's what concerns me. But anyways, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. And I hope Mr. Perlman has much success in whatever endeavors he takes on. And I'm glad that he did take the building over and clean it up. But there's a lot of consequences to what's being proposed here. And I like where I live, and I hope I don't have to move again. So, you know. And there's gonna be money that's gonna be generated for the city, and that's good. But there's also the consideration that you people sitting at that table better understand. There's also the word vote. And if you know, you're going to spend the money, but that vote's going to be there the next time election time comes around.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Weeder. I live at 8 Hanover, and thanks for being here tonight. I know this is your guys' personal time. I would just say it's obvious that there's a lot of community resistance against this, and I worked out in Troy for a number of years, and I'd say, without an exaggeration, half of the buildings are empty now. I don't think we got past the trough of the economic downturn, so when a company comes and wants to put something in the city, while it may have some disruptive aspects, we have a planning commission, we also have a city commission that takes these things into consideration. So it might be best, and I'm not saying you're wrong, you may be right, it may be just too disruptive for you when you're on the side of town that you're on. I'm not on that side of town. But I think we should look very closely, because remember, this is in the context of the issue of public safety and the things we can move forward with the city. So let's not all be throwing our arms up in the air next year saying, I don't want any tax increases and I want more cops on the street, because we won't have more cops on the street. They cost money. Fire coverage costs money. Ambulance coverage costs money. This isn't necessarily an issue of tax revenue. It won't be that great. It's not going to contribute to the city and solve all our budget problems, but it's certainly something to consider. The dynamics of the neighborhood and keeping up the property values are definitely impacted by the way Woodward looks. We look like a nice community. That's part of the reason we keep the green belt, is because it makes us look very different from surrounding communities. So the issue of empty buildings sitting on Woodward has potential. Again, this may not be right. You guys really need to decide if it's close to your house. This is something you can tolerate. But I do think that the City Planning Commission and the police in Pleasant Ridge can manage things if planned out properly. It sounded like there was going to be enough review that it would get considered. So I would ask people to simply keep an open mind that this is somewhat unusual, putting in something, a new business in any town around here, and then putting money into upgrading the facility and keeping up the property values. I don't know how many of you are unemployed, but it's not much fun. And when you're unemployed, your property tax gets to be a big deal. So just consider that there are issues here of public safety, the police force, funding for the city, as well as the image of the city that impact the tax base and hence city revenues. Thanks.
Thank you.
Where does he live and what is his name?
Mike?
Mike Weeder, I live in Hanover. I told you, I'm not on your side of town.
No, you just...
Hey, Mrs. McCutcheon, if you want to speak, please come to the microphone.
Well, I don't know who this guy is.
Well, he said who he was.
Okay. All right. Hi, Janet McCutcheon, 4 Devonshire. I'm here with a letter from my daughter, Caitlin. She was unable to attend tonight, but she made some really interesting observations, and I wanted to share them with the group. My first one is, or her first one is that the problem, there's lots of former cafes and restaurants on the other side of the Woodward down underpass. The Burger King is gone and the building is now empty. Poor Waterstone Cafe and Grill has been at least 6 things since we've lived here for the last 26 years. They don't seem to be able to keep businesses because of the underpass. Caitlin also mentions in her letter that the signage, when they come by to either go down under the freeway or to get on 696, is confusing. There's no lights. People are not going to see this business, this restaurant, and want to stop as a potential. Now Cork, they're lucky they got a light. People see it all the time. When you come around to do the Michigan left, Cork has got their light. May's Cafe has the light at Sylvan to stop people and say, hey, there's a ton of people standing out in front of May's on Sunday morning. Maybe we should try that next Sunday. The other thing Caitlin came up with also is the fact that the parking, there's just there doesn't make any sense about parking. There's Vincetta Garage is the newest and coolest place to go these days, but they're having issues. I've even seen signs go up in the parallel parking in front of Westbourne Market that says, don't park here. Henderson Glass, don't park here. If you're going to Vincetta, find somewhere else to park. They've got valet out there, but they still don't have enough places to put the cars when the valets take them. So that would be another observation Caitlin had about inadequate parking. And the last and final thing I want to say is that this is literally in my backyard. And as several people have pointed out this evening, even the man from the planning advisory, the lots are thin. The alleyway is a major thoroughfare right now, every day. I live on the alley. Trucks go by, garbage trucks go by. UPS, FedEx, Expedex, not including people going home off of 696, off of Woodward Avenue, going down the alley to get to their house. At dinner time, it quadruples in business. It's so busy, okay? And it's thin and it's narrow. I can't even see that there'd be parking back there. However, if this is real personal for me too, it would completely change the way we live in our home. Our home is a summer home. We have a screened-in porch. It sits 25 feet from the alleyway. I don't mind having retail. The art studio guy was not the nicest neighbor on the planet, but he at least brought business to Pleasant Ridge, okay? And the thing is that I would love to see something go in there that's not a bar. And you can call it a bistro, you can call it a cafe, you can call it what you want, but if it's got a liquor license, it's a bar. And people are just...
Back there, the lady back there, and then you, Mike. Lady in red. I think there was a song by that name.
Hello. Hi, my name is Patricia Ignatius. I live at 9 Amherst for 21 years. I'm approaching this with a little different perspective. I'm going to say, be very afraid. I live on the street of May's. I love May's food, but it's very hard to live with a diner on the corner. It's not just a disruption of life, it's a complete change in our quality of our lives. Children out playing. Cars are forever. They are forever. I have numerous photos of cars blocking my driveway. I'm talking halfway, where you can't get in, can't get out. Parking on the wrong side of the street, so you really can't get out. I've got, they get their deliveries, the truck parks right smack in the middle of the street. Time to go pick my kids up, I can't go. I'm blocked in. I know I'm not doing a moral thing here. I'm just saying if you want to know the care and feeding of this thing, I'm here to tell you it will change your life, and not for the better. You can put up all the signs you like. I came to other meetings. The Wellesley lot is marked now, but they will not park there. They will park on our street every time because they don't want to walk any further than they have to. It brings unwanted attention. I saw a man taking pictures of my house. I don't want my neighborhood to be, I like my private little well-kept secret of Pleasant Ridge. And now you've got people coming in and out. checking out the houses. I know the architecture is beautiful, but you don't know if they're looking in your garage at what bike you have and come back later. You just don't know that. I don't like it. I don't welcome it. My neighbors want to put up a sign and move. That's how upset they're getting. I would hate to see that happen. And keep in mind that Mays closes by 4 o'clock every day. And so the madness is over. Street parking is almost impossible just for us residents. And I mean, you're lucky to get down to Indiana on the weekend. It is really completely unbearable. You just wonder about, will crime follow? And at previous meetings, when we talked about parking, people by Cork were saying, you know, people pee on their lawn. They park on their street, even though the street is blocked. They said they'll come around and they'll still park on your street, and they'll climb over the walls. There just is not any parking. If a tiny little diner like Mays has this much trouble with parking, can you imagine a restaurant of that size with a liquor license staying open that late? I can't even imagine it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good thing you don't know that building.
Mike Gillette, 34 Oakland Park. Just point of clarification, I've heard a lot of people talk about concerns that if an establishment is granted a liquor license today under the premise that they're, say, a bistro, that a year from now they could completely change the structure of that business, which would be detrimental to the neighborhood, and that would be allowed. Could you give us some clarification on the way the liquor license stands today and how the changing of a business in the future would be impacted by that license?
Well, I'll let Sherry and Charlie give more detail, but basically you heard me speak of the operation and management agreement that would need to come back to the City Commission for approval. And in that agreement, the operator would commit to a business plan and not to deviate from that business plan without commission approval. So for instance, a big concern at the time that the Cork development was being reviewed and eventually approved, there was very much a big concern about it not becoming a sports bar. And it is not going to become a sports bar. And there would be similar concerns, you know, being addressed with respect to any further applications. Sherry, Charlie, can you chime in as well?
And further, what happens is that you have to, whoever becomes a proprietor has to actually have a contractual relationship with the city. In other words, this is just different from issuing a license and then a person being able to do whatever a licensee can do. What happens is that the individual then negotiates with the city, and when I say negotiate, this is all aspects of it, hours, parking, everything. And in the event that they deviate from that contract, then obviously that's a violation, and once it becomes a violation, then they're subject to close. So it's a really, we have an excellent ordinance.
Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back, then over here, then over here. Three is all I can keep track of at a time.
Thank God you have 10 fingers.
Use them each 3 times.
Hi, Mike McDonald, 33 Amherst. I'm in the target area of this proposed business. We've been here over 20 years, so we've seen a lot of changes going about the city. I'm very pleased with them. I love the way that Mays has gone from a reluctant little place to now a burgeoning business. However, with that, it comes along, you know, the parking issues that are handled quite well. However, this proposed restaurant, bar, whatever we're calling it, I have a suggestion for maybe a little give and take with this. Okay, is that better? A little give and take with this. Parking obviously is a big issue. And it has gotten larger as more businesses have come into, and when the AAA building gets rented out, they have a lot, but you know, that's going to, who knows what's going to happen there. How about this? There's a lot more square footage in this building than the proposed restaurant cafe is going to use. How about if we excise some of this building and have them build a parking lot for their business? and they can then have the parking issue self-contained on their property. They can monitor the people that are parking there, and we can have a little bit less expense on our side because of the police costs for monitoring the parking, as opposed to they doing it on their own property. Just an idea.
Thank you. Over here. This gentleman has the floor next, then Mr. Lachey.
Thanks for your time. Peter Samurai, 43 Maywood. You know, hearing all the passion back and forth, and I live about 4 blocks from it. You know, I love the city and I love the establishments that have gone in so far, to include Cork. Not necessarily a big fan of you know, the liquor license necessarily. However, what I would ask is, if we could do a little experiment in terms of approving this for 2 years with a house swap, meaning everybody at this table swaps houses with the people that are right next to the establishment. I wasn't really trying to, you know, raise this up like that, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, if I was in those, you can't judge somebody or where they're at until you're in their shoes. That's the point I'm trying to make. So I would ask everybody at this table to really put yourself in some of these people's shoes that are right next to this place and imagine the smoke, the drinking, all that sort of thing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I have to say. Like I said, not a big fan of it. Love the development that's been going on, but I would just ask before you make your votes to think that way. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. Mark Lachey, 37 Kensington. I served on the Pleasant Ridge City Commission for 14 years, and I was on the Planning Commission before that for a couple of years.
And recently returned from the Democratic Convention.
I did, actually, yeah. Don't let that dissuade anybody who may not be a Democrat. 37 Kensington. I stood right at this podium when Cork was being put in and being proposed at this exact same type of hearing, and I opposed it for the same reason. I didn't think there was parking at the time for Cork. I still don't think there's adequate parking for Cork. I don't think there'll be parking adequate for this bistro. And I have a question. So we've got the municipal lot that's going to be used for this parking, is that correct? The bulk of this parking other than the few spaces in front?
I would think that's where it'd have to come from, wouldn't it, Sherry?
Well, there isn't a parking plan in place, so yes.
I know it's a chicken, I understand, it's a chicken and egg problem, but my concern is that how many times over we count the same spaces in the municipal lot during the evenings. Because it's my recollection, for example, that Cork uses that lot, and there will be other businesses that may be open past 5 o'clock in the evening. I'm just wondering how many times we count the same finite number of spaces in the municipal parking lot, and I do recognize it's chicken and egg. But I really don't think that there's adequate parking. There used to be a restaurant, bar restaurant, on the other side of Woodward Avenue up in Royal Oak, and I cannot think of the name of it. It was chrome, and it was built like a streetcar. And back then, pre-Cork, pre-Vincetta Garage, the local neighbors there had the same situation of people urinating in their lawns, throwing glasses, parking, being loud. The Royal Oak Police then couldn't take care of it, and that place, I believe, is closed. Now we have the same situation with Vincetta Garage. And the other point I want to make is, and I think it's a lousy situation for those homes. I feel sorry for the homes that live near Vincetta Garage. The other question I have is, you talk about a bistro, and when we were talking about Cork, it was, wow, we'll finally have a fine dining establishment in Pleasant Ridge that we can walk to, or we can bike to, or that if we get drunk, they'll take us home from. And so now, that was kind of one of the selling points. And so I'm curious from the developer whether this bistro will be a destination restaurant, or like Maze or Cork, a neighborhood restaurant. And my point is that if it's not a destination restaurant, we already have that in our community. We already have the local drop-in, have a drink, have a nice meal, or have a nice breakfast or brunch. We don't need another one. And if it's not a destination, I'm not sure that it will survive fiscally. So I think I'm curious as to the business model, the viability of the business model. I also, a couple people mentioned the two plans that I'm looking at, they vary in seating from 82 to 79, and then this evening he mentioned 70. To go from 82 to 70, that's a significant number of cars, that's a significant number drop. Again, it might be a chicken and egg thing, but I also am concerned that if, for example, he were to rent only space 1 and 2, whether he might come to the city and say, okay, well, I want to expand the restaurant to include space number 3. That's the only way my building's going to be viable. All of those things add up to basically what the situation seems to be is that it concerns me that if the commission votes to pass the liquor license, it will start the momentum of, oh, well, let's make this work because the commission passed the liquor license. So a final question, does it have to be, I see 4 of you tonight, there has to be a vote of 3 or 4 to pass the liquor license?
That would be a majority, yes.
Okay, not 2 of 4, not 3 of the 4. You know, I think Pleasant Ridge, well, 2 final comments. One, I get a little irritated when people who live on the west side of town try to dictate as to what the development on the east side of town should be. And I'm going to have some people throw stuff at me. They hold the greenbelt sacrosanct. It has always been that way. I don't oppose having the greenbelt, but if they ever, we talked about putting condos, for example, at the end of Millington, that went nowhere. And the idea of the people on the west side of town saying, well, gosh, we wanted Cork so we can walk to a restaurant. I like the guy saying, you know, anybody who came up here and said, well, I live on the west side of town and I'm in favor of the restaurant. Well, I think they should move into McCutcheon's place once the restaurant's put in and see how they like it for a while. You know, it's significant. When I first got involved with city politics...
Mark, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah.
Just as a point of clarification, what protects the greenbelt is not the west side. What protects the greenbelt is a charter requirement of 60% of the people to vote to sell city property.
Correct.
So,
well, I'm not saying the west side... No, I'm not. I think the majority. I don't think it would pass. I think the majority of east side people would be in favor of the greenbelt staying the way it is. I don't think I was saying that, but I was saying...
That's how I took it. That's why the only reason I interrupted.
And which side of town do you live on, ma'am?
You know where I live.
My point exactly. When I lost my train of thought. When I first moved into town, there was a plan, the first master plan for this city was being instituted and was being drafted, and there was a talk about redeveloping this very concern that our planning consultant talked about, that the strip of development was too narrow, and they were talking about taking all of Kensington and redeveloping it as McDonald's and video stores. Gosh, remember video stores? And pizza joints and things like that, strip mall. And that the public, the citizenry, especially on the east side at that time, said no. You talk about sacrosanct. The citizenry said no, we want the east side barrier to stay the way it is. We want to retain our housing values. We want to retain the neighborhood as best we can on the east side. People who live on the east side live there because they choose to, not because they can't afford a big house on the west side. In many cases, at least I do. And I don't need 6 bedrooms. So, you know, I mean, there's a character on both sides of our community, and I think that the City Commission has to recognize that and remember that, and that development for the sake of development is just a simply lousy idea. And I think the final point I want to make is that to address the person who said something about, gosh, we're going to lose our police department and our fire department and we're going to go to hell in a hat basket if we don't have this restaurant. I have seen the city residents time and time again vote for millages, vote for tax increases when they find that the reason to remain Pleasant Ridge the way it is, and I think that would happen one more time. Thank you.
sir, I'm going to caution, this is your second time up, and I will be...
I don't want to talk, I just want to make a correction.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to make
So
sure
that
everybody gets a
everybody
chance.
knows the real fact.
Well, come to the microphone, but as I said, I want to make sure everybody gets up here at least once.
Well, some gentleman asked what the consequences would be if someone didn't stick to their arrangements that were made. Now, unless the state statute has been amended about the Liquor Commission, I don't want to argue with the renowned attorney here, but ladies and gentlemen, once you issue that license, you lost your hammer. You can't take that license away once you give it. The only people that can do that is the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. Now, unless that rule has been changed, the city doesn't have anything to say about that license once you issue it. Not as far as revoking or taking it back. Now, if I'm wrong, then correct me, but
Yeah, it's contractual. In other words, it's that we have a special provision in our ordinance that says that you contract with the city to do certain things. And if you don't do those things, then, you know, that you're subject to.
and how are you going to enforce that?
You just walk right up to Oakland County and get an injunction and close them.
Where does the Liquor Commission come in on that?
They don't come in on it.
They have the final say-so as to, once you issue a license, only the Liquor Commission can rescind it, unless there's something to change the law. Is that correct or not?
The Liquor Control Commission
Can rescind the license
they can
once you
rescind
issue it.
But if anyone violates the provision of the contract between the licensee and the city can go and get injunctive relief for that and close them.
Then they must have changed the rules and regulations to the Liquor Commission.
We have a very, very strict liquor control.
They're the only people that can enforce any violation of the Liquor Commission, as far as I know. The city can't do that. You've lost your hammer.
Lady over here, and then Ms. Crutchfield.
Hi, I'm Amber Herrick. I live at 40 Kensington, across from Mr. Lachey. I guess going on that same topic of the liquor license, I have more of a question, but curious is, if Mr. Perlman then decides to sell his business, who owns the license at that point? Does the business own it, or does Mr. Perlman own the license?
Well, maybe if I can answer your question, whoever buys it has to again contract again with the city.
So they would have to reapply with the city and do the same thing?
They would have to reapply and go through the same process.
Okay. And then, I don't necessarily know that I'm strongly opposed or agree with it, but I will say that this is for the liquor license, and we keep talking about parking, and that's going to be a disaster in itself. But I think that we all need to really focus today on the fact that it's a liquor license, and do you want drunk people walking up and down your yard and your driveway? Last summer, a neighbor and I were just sitting out on the porch having wine, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're sitting on my porch. The amount of traffic of drunk people walking up and down Kensington, we were like, where are these people coming from? You know, what's going on? We were just shocked. And we were laughing and we're giggling, and finally started yelling, hey, where are you guys going? Do you live in town? They're like, oh, we're wandering to Ferndale. And they were like just wandering to random places, and they didn't even know where they were wandering into our neighborhood. And I don't live on the corner. And so I just think that it's going to bring on so many more people just wandering around. I don't know where I parked my car, walking up and down our yards. You know, we've had, you know, in the neighborhood, people going through people's backyards, things like that. And those are the things I think we really need to focus on today. Is not, I mean, we all know parking will be a disaster, and that's something that needs to be worked out. But this is a liquor license giving people the sole to 2 o'clock in the morning. Again, I'm not opposed to a business. I would love to have a restaurant that I find affordable that I can go eat at the end of my road. I think that would be fabulous. But do I want people wandering down my street from 2 to 4? No, I really don't. And like these guys said, that this is in their bedroom. This is, you know, I'm down the road. This isn't happening outside my bedroom door, outside my bedroom window. And I just think that as a community, you know, we should respect each other enough to say, like, when they bought their place, there wasn't a 2 o'clock in the morning rowdy party happening. And so I guess that's my point, is that I think that we really need to look at the fact that what this is bringing to the town, not just parking all night, people walking up through our neighborhoods, and what comes with that.
Thank you. Crutchfield, you had your hand up next. Then the lady over here, then the lady in back, and then Rob.
Nancy Crutchfield, 32 Devonshire. While I'm not opposed to the business, you know, I have the other liquor license in the city. I'm just concerned about the traffic at the end of the street, so I will say that. Why I came up was to comment, to put, I feel like I should be addressing everybody behind me, really not you guys, because what I wanted to say is that in holding the liquor license, I don't own the liquor license. I look at it as more of co-owning it with the city. And I'm sure Mr. Perlman will have to sign a similar contract, and I'm sure that contract is public record, is it not? If somebody
Yes.
wanted to read it or request it from City Hall. And it's, I think Mr. Cooper said to me when I was about to sign it, I can't believe you're really going to sign this, because it is very prohibitive. I am not allowed to change my hours. I'm not allowed to do, we did sneak in a TV, Ralph, as you know.
And you let me watch 2 minutes of a Michigan State
I
game.
let you watch 2 minutes of a Michigan game once, right? But it's not the kind of liquor license where I can sell it to anyone. I can't take it out of the city, much less take it out of the county. So I just want people to know that if you think Mr. Perlman's going to take the liquor license and just go hog wild, that is not the case. And yes, the state of Michigan is the one who you know, finally approves the liquor license, but it's run by the city. The city police, the city commissioners, the city officials have to police the liquor licensee in the city. So it's not something that the state, you know, I run to the state and say, I don't like the way the city's treating me. The state doesn't care. The state endorses what the city says. So I just wanted to point out that the city is very much in partnership with the liquor licensee.
Thank you. Over here. And sir, did you have your hand up too earlier? Yeah, you
Good evening, Sharon Sinelli, 62 Amherst. I love Pleasant Ridge. I have nothing against you, but I don't want this. And my reason being, I live east of Indiana, and I deal with Mays, and I like Mays. I go to Mays. When you already have a situation that it's a place that's open on a limited basis, I go to work in the morning, I don't take Amherst. I go and take Wellesley, something else, because there's already things going on. Except on Mondays. Mondays I take Amherst because they're closed. And I will say on the weekends, when I go do my running around my groceries, I avoid Amherst. And I'm east of Indiana, so I can't imagine what these poor people would be going through. And it's a bar. You might want to say a bistro, 2 a.m., whatever you want to call it, it's a bar.
I understand, but I had missed him by mistake. I apologize. You're next after him.
I'm sorry. My name is Joe Carr. I live at 1 Devonshire, also your neighbor. My question is, what is your experience in the restaurant industry, and what other establishments do you own?
If you care to respond, please come to the microphone.
And I have a follow-up question.
Well, I've been in the restaurant and bar business since 1985 continuously, and currently I own a small martini bar in Ferndale called Soho.
He said Soho. And then my question is for other questions for you guys. From the city commissioner standpoint, what do you see this doing to our property values for the people that live right there in the area?
Well, that's part of the reason we're here tonight, is to try to start evaluating that. You know, I can't tell you that I would ever consider voting for something that's going to be open until 2 o'clock in the morning. Is there some earlier hour? I don't know yet. But I agree with the person who said at 2 o'clock in the morning it's a bar.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Judy Zachary from 68 Devonshire, and I don't usually speak at public meetings, but I feel very strongly about this. Ted and I moved in 1976, and we always enjoyed living 3 houses from the park. And there's been a lot of changes. We had that big tennis thing built and torn down, and we've had You know, now we have the public garden and more parking and everything down there, which we've adjusted to, and we're very flexible. But I don't know if people who don't live on Devonshire realize how dangerous that is at the corner of Devonshire and Woodward. Anytime anybody tries to turn right, going north on Woodward at Devonshire, people think you're turning right to go the expressway. At night, I have to put my light on inside the car. I always roll my window down and put my hand out, like right-hand turn, and people are still about 2 inches from my back of my car. So mostly I try to turn before I get there and weave down through the neighborhood, but that's a dangerous corner, as well as Sylvan, where I was double hit by 2 men who were drinking in a pickup truck and totaled my car, and I was hauled off in an ambulance. While hearing the 2 men who left the scene of the accident and spoke to the Pleasant Ridge Police saying she ran a red light. And I think all of you in this room know, those of us who live on the east or west side, never cross Woodward on a red light, and I have not. So my experience with the danger of Woodward traffic is since 1976. And I'm also, I love the Field building. I pass it practically daily, either walking or in my car. I'm surprised it stayed open as long as I have, because I virtually cannot remember more than seeing 5 people enter it over all the time since I've lived here. But I have another concern, and that's a while back, I can't remember when, we used to have a sign at the corner of Indiana and Devonshire that said, what do you call it when you have to turn back around and go out? Dead end. And it hasn't been there for quite a while, and I don't know what happened to it. But even when it was there, a lot of traffic comes down to my end of the street. I live 3 houses from the railroad track. And a lot of people who come down there have turned the wrong way, thinking they can get out, either to the expressway or out somewhere, and then realize they can't and turn around. Now, these are not people just leisurely driving. They're speeding, and they have narrowly missed our cars that are parked on the street. So to me, thinking about a business that would have people, in my experience of 69 years of living, and not all of those understanding about people who drink, but in the years that I have paid attention to it, I think anybody who stays in a restaurant till 2:30 in the morning is probably has been drinking. I think you can agree with me on that, and I'm not saying they're going to be drunk, and I don't know if they're going to pee on somebody's grass, but I do think that their thinking is going to be impaired, and their judgment will be impaired, and they're going to be zooming down to get out of the neighborhood at my end of the street, and Ted and I, that's where we're going to be living for the rest of our lives. We're not going to be able to sell our house and move anywhere. So we're real flexible people. Neither one of us drink, but we certainly don't have anything against drinking. But I think that anybody who has a meal and wants to drink till 2:30 in the morning can do it on their front porch like this nice lady.
There was someone back here who, no, there's someone, okay, there, and then someone, no, you're coming, I'm just trying to identify the next one. You're next, then over here, then in the back.
Fairwood Rob, 8 Fairwood, Rob second. Anyway, I think Mark hit it on the head. We're double counting, it could be, nothing's in writing, double counting parking spots, because Cork did say they were going to use Wellesley for their employees and for valet. We're talking in the DDA and planning about the living alleyways and developing our alleyways. If you want to come down the alleys in the morning by Cork, no disregard to Cork, I actually like Cork, love Nancy. When the trucks are doing their deliveries, you can't get through the alley. It is a parking lot. They park their truck. If you're halfway through, you got to turn around, back out. At Wellesley, between Wellesley and Devonshire, that I don't know how you're going to live in that alley or have it be a vibrant alley, walking way alley. trucks are parked, and yes, they leave their trucks running, you have the fumes, whatever, they make noise, usually in the morning deliveries. I have a question about, so you're gonna issue, if you do issue a license, he retains ownership. Can he retain ownership of the license but lease the restaurant bar to another individual to operate?
The operation would have to be by the licensee.
Being him.
Correct.
So he could not lease it to someone else to come in and run it? Okay. You said you're going to evaluate property values. Has anybody looked at the property values at Sylvan, Fairwood, Woodward Heights since Cork? That's 2 years now. Has anyone evaluated what it's done to resaleability, if that's a real word, of our homes?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So you're going to do it now?
I've said we're in the process of evaluating. So
Okay.
Maybe I didn't answer the question
That's
as
fair.
precisely as
That's
it
fair.
is.
So would it be, I'm going to ask anyways, maybe it would be, I could ask you to delay voting on a liquor license until you evaluate what Cork has done to our property values, or even, I invite all of you to come by. I know you go to, a number of people go to Cork. You go in the front door, come out the back door, 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night. Just see what Sylvan is like, Fairwood is like, and what it is doing to the current establishment. No one's ever, I don't know if anyone's come by and looked, but I'm saying maybe you should do that before you vote and hit another little neighborhood.
I understand.
And I have nothing against, I don't even know this man, and I did not know Fairwood Nancy before she moved in. In defense of the bar restaurant, Nancy's been a great neighbor. If there have been issues with which there's been minor, you go to her, she addresses them. There's no need to go to Sherry and hit it. I usually go to Nancy. The things she can't control, though, really are the parking. People have surprise parties. You're not going to park in the Fairwood lot. You're going to park down my street, Sylvan. You have and not that it's a big deal, people walking from the bar, they do throw their cigarette butts all over your property. We didn't have that before, big deal. We have street sweepers that come by. It's just minor stuff. But overall, thanks for Jerry, who supported us last year with Cork. He actually voted no. He stood behind the neighborhood, and it's worked out. I mean, we've been good neighbors, and I thank her for that. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
The lady over here. Sir, the lady over here.
I'm Alexis Beck. I live at 9 Devonshire. And what I'm concerned about is that you don't have a plan for the parking. And I want to know what you're going to do about restricting people parking on Devonshire, because we have events where we have people, family coming, and we have parties, and we want enough places for them to park. We don't want to have them have to walk, a block away to be able to park on the street if they're visiting somebody there. And the other thing that I wanted to say is, you say we're going to be, upset when we find out we're going to get a tax increase, we can't afford another police officer. I think that most of us can afford a tax increase, and we're willing to pay it to keep our neighborhood the way it is.
Thank you.
There's somebody in the back that was next, then you, sir. Somebody in the back, gentleman here on the aisle. Then you, then back there.
Good evening. Charlie Kuhn, 40 Maplefield Road. I think that we should perhaps, give Mr. Perlman the benefit of the doubt here. And I understand I live on the west side. Parking is a big issue. However, coming up and down Woodward, it is a vacant building. Vacant building begets blight and so on and so forth. And that can also have a compounding effect. Having someone that's coming in here is investing money, going to put a use in the building, going to be retailing the building. In my opinion, that's only helping the city. I'm a developer myself, so I'm keep up with this stuff, and I enjoy that. And you know, believe it or not, we get a bad rap, but we're really here, most people, not all, we want to be successful in the community, work with the community. I'm getting that impression from Mr. Perlman. Parking's an issue. I'm not going to address that. They're not going to be parking down my street. If that question is addressable, perhaps that's a contingency that's going to be placed on a liquor license. I imagine it would be. But by and large, I support the project. I like the amenity of it here in Pleasant Ridge. I like Court, I like Maze, and I enjoy, and I think I'll enjoy some other retail properties as well. Not to mention if there's one building or one restaurant in there, that will also beget other people more interested and make that building more marketable towards other retailers, whether it be soft goods, you name it, whatever it is, not a restaurant, I imagine. But that's a good step in the right direction. Building's old, it doesn't look very good. And I drive by it every day too on the way to work. And I'd be thrilled if something happened there.
Thank you. Over here. Gentleman in the blue.
Michael Cave, 1 Wellesley. It seems to me you're putting the cart in front of the horse here, issuing a liquor license prior to even the site plans, but I am not thrilled about this liquor license being passed. I don't, up and down Woodward Avenue, I've heard all the complaints about parking with all the establishments. I've heard this gentleman over here say balance, we're going to balance the parking with the resident and the establishments. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Everybody here, with all our new establishments that we've had here, the various restaurants, they've all got complaints about parking. Pleasant Ridge doesn't have parking. So that's one issue. I'm not thrilled at all because I live right next door to this establishment, or proposed establishment. I'm not looking forward to the litter, the urine, the loud noises, the odor. Not only that, but I feel that with those hours, that with a liquor license, that it's going to destroy the family community that Pleasant Ridge has. I've been here since 1948, 63 years, and it's a beautiful, loving community. People move here because it's family orientated. You want to party? Hey, there's plenty of party room in Royal Oak, obviously in Ferndale, and hey, more power to them. There's empty buildings up and down Woodward Avenue that have adequate parking. Sorry, but I mean, he knows about there's no, when I left here at 10 to 7, there were 10 cars parked in that municipal parking over at Distill because of the people already working there from, I guess, the dentist and the lawyer's office that's there. So now, as it's been brought up, how many times are you going to count this parking lot? You know, it's just parking. Now, then you also had a rodent alert this summer. Now you're going to throw a restaurant in there that feeds these critters. You know, who's going to stand up against that? The delivery trucks, as we say, that's a main thoroughway. Come after work. I work all day, so I don't know what happens during the day. But, you know, come after work hours, that alleyway is the way people go home. And if you got delivery trucks and also trash containers, you're supposed to have those things enclosed, if I remember the ordinance right. They're supposed to be enclosed, so that eliminates 3, you have 3 more establishments. I'm sure you're going to have 3 more dumpsters there. That's 3 less parking places you're going to have. I thank you. I'm against it. Thank you.
Good point.
The name is Bill Hartman from 31 Elm Park Boulevard. I guess my question tonight is mainly about process. City Manager Ball indicated that she was recommending that the commission vote tonight on a pre-approval to move forward with the project, but that there was no risk to it because the planning board was going to have to review everything and make final considerations. Excuse me. And then Mayor Castelli mentioned that the issue is going to come back anyway, no matter what, to the city commission for a final yes or no vote, up or down, whatever it might be. So I guess my question is, what is the pre-approval vote tonight if it does occur, and what would it commit the city to, and what purpose does it serve?
Well, I think the primary purpose it would serve would be to not be a vote to turn down the application, to, in essence, embrace further discussion and development of whether, something can be worked out or not. And, I make no bones about it. If it's up or down on 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm down. If it's up or down at 11:30 at night, I might have a different opinion. But the purpose of an early vote is to provide an indication to the applicant as to whether this is something the city would consider or not, to encourage the applicant to then spend not an insignificant amount of money and time to proceed further with site plan review and working out an agreement. Public hearing is tonight, doesn't mean a vote has to be tonight. And Sherry proposed 2 resolutions to us, one to approve and one to turn down.
Okay. I guess my only...
The later process is the whole site plan review process before the Planning Commission, development of the type of agreement we described, that Ms. Crutchfield described, and then the final vote would be, approval of that agreement or not.
Okay, I guess my only comment would be that term pre-approval is a little misleading, and the fact that it's sort of being approved, and maybe just a motion for further consideration.
They can make any motion they want. It could be a motion for further consideration. It could be a motion to authorize the city manager to continue discussions. And then Mr. Perlman has a decision, because life is full of decisions. And he can decide whether that motion is sufficient for him to continue on or to find some other use for the 4th spot in the building.
Yeah, it's just such a important decision to a lot of residents that my personal opinion is that I wouldn't want to be voting until I had all the final details.
I understand your point of view.
So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I would like to bring this up, Mr. Hartman, but also subject to, so I mean...
Microphone, Jerry.
It's the motion, and not that there's been a motion moved, but it's subject to, so I mean, it's not that we're...
What he's saying is, in the proposed wording, if there was a motion in accordance with the proposed wording to approve, it was subject to site plan approval, working out the development agreement and that type of thing. So correct. And so really it's not a turning down in a sense.
The subject to almost makes it seem like, though, if the planning board approves it, it's then automatically approved without a further vote.
Planning board approves site plan approval. Planning board does not approve the operation and development agreement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Over here. Yeah, you.
Hi, I'm Pat Corrigan. I live at 31 Wellesley, and this is just a really minor question, and excuse me if it was already addressed. I came late. Are you planning music, Mr. Perlman?
We have proposed...
Mr. Perlman, can you come to the microphone? I'm sorry.
Initially proposed some light entertainment, such as maybe a jazz group or a Motown or a piano player in the evening.
Thank you.
So there wouldn't be any recorded music? Or loud recording? Nothing? Okay. Okay, thank you.
And as I recall, no dance permit either. Yes, over right back here.
Hi, my name is Don St. Aubin. I live at 5 Devonshire. I just want to make one point is we have Ferndale, which is a mile away, Royal Oak half a mile away. They have hundreds of restaurants, bars. I don't understand why we need to, where there's limited commercial depth and stuff, houses right there, why we need to have restaurants and bars. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir. And then over here.
Nathan Schoenfeld, 28 Kensington. As a resident of the community for the last 18 years, I've seen a lot of things change, obviously, as most of us have already said. But in speaking to my neighbors, there's been stories of people that have wandered through the alleyway between Kensington and Devonshire, that have gone into a neighbor's garden area and decided to defecate in the middle of broad daylight. I don't think that this particular type of thing is acceptable. I have an 8-year-old daughter. I'm concerned about that. As many of you know, Kensington gets a lot of traffic. We're an extremely high volume street as it is. That corner where the parking lot is at for the multi-bank building is constantly used for transient type of things. There was a duffel bag found Labor Day weekend there that was recovered by the police department after it was observed by somebody going through it. It wasn't even his. There's all kinds of strange things that go on. We've had numerous cars that have come off of Woodward, dumped on Kensington in front of my neighbors' houses at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, people flying down the street. I'm all for retail development, and I would like to see something go in there, and I'm glad that something is, but certainly not a bar, bistro, restaurant, whatever it is that you want to call it. I don't think this is the time nor the place for it. I'm not willing to pay extra in taxes to police the city because we're going to issue a license to somebody to operate an establishment like this. I think we should pay extra taxes to support our police department and keep things going as they are.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Barb Summer, and I live at 23 Maywood, at the corner of Indiana and Maywood. And I've been in business for a long time and have a lot of exposure to food and beverage operations. So I am very supportive of food and beverage establishments. I think we've been very fortunate with the owners that we've had at Mays and at Cork because they've been very cooperative. But I do live on the corner of Indiana, and I have seen a big increase in traffic on Indiana since those establishments opened, which means that the traffic on the other streets are increasing as well. So my concern is that once we have another street that's got parking taking up sometimes both sides of the street, because I usually use Amherst as my egress, and I don't go down there either frequently on the weekends because there's people, they stop right in the middle of the street. When you're driving down Woodward, cars just stop right in the middle of the street. And I see it all the time. I cross the light at Sylvan frequently, and I'm still concerned about that, as everybody is. I've almost been hit twice this summer. So the increase in traffic is just a huge concern. I'm sure people have brought it up, but if you really spend time, you could just see the traffic violations increasing continuously. And it's just a big concern. On the other hand, it's been great that we've had so many people with young families move to the east side over the last 10 years. I've seen more kids, so I'm more concerned about the traffic because of that. And I want that to continue, that we have the young families also moving in on the east side. So that's all.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Rex Smith. I own 24200 Woodward, right next to Mr. Perlman. Frankly, we were surprised. We've never seen anything with these diagrams. Tonight's the first time we've seen anything that resembled what he's trying to do with the building. We certainly feel that development is welcome with adding office space. We have a professional office services place there. We do marketing. Our concerns have been echoed by everybody except that we have a going business concern. blocking that alley is gonna have problems for us. We actually have parking as part of our taxable base behind our building. Our employees use that. Parking in front of the building is we try and reserve for our clients. Blocking that during the day with trucks is gonna be a problem for us. Dumpster space is gonna be a problem.
So you're in the building that immediately
Yes.
adjoins, shares a wall with
Yes,
this?
we share a wall, well, we're close to a wall, you know, and so we feel that parking has always been a problem at that location, even with the limited people that we have there. And that, while there may be any overlap at all, is going to continue. We many times work late. We're in the marketing business, that's what happens. And so we look at the number of disruption to the neighborhood in terms of, again, in terms of the dumpsters, in terms of the odors that are going to come out of this, and in terms of the parking, and we think that that's going to cause some serious issues for everyone else as well as for us. We've been here 10 years, and we see it as a direct impact on our business and ability to continue doing business in Pleasant Ridge.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Somebody with a green sleeve in the back. It looks green from here, I'm colorblind.
Hi, I'm Jody Metzger.
You're going to have to pull the microphone down from the last
Live
speaker.
at 28 Sylvan. And I've listened to everybody tonight, and I know that the people that are very much interested in having another establishment in our neighborhood, for some, they'll just be disappointed if it doesn't go through. But in essence, it seems that the commission will be voting on the quality of life for over 20% of the residents of the city. And that is really something to think about. It's not just a disappointment if it doesn't go through, but for the people that will be affected, it could be devastating if it does. And that's just what I say.
Thank you. Anybody else? In the back.
Hello. I'm Julie Gallia. I'm at 11 Devonshire. I've been a resident in the city for over 7 years now. Love living here. I love being a part of a vibrant community. I love that it's walkable. You know, my concern is, and I hate to be redundant here, but I feel like it's my one chance to say something. I have really small children. I have a single driveway on Devonshire that fits one car. I'm a working mom, running back and forth to, you know, play dates and work and everything else and appointments. I hear concerns about delays and getting your driveways blocked and not being able to get in and out. I mean, it would be devastating. I have like 1 minute to spare all the time. In addition to that, you know, I have babysitters and play dates. One car usually goes in my driveway or it blocks the whole thing. We rely on the street parking. What are people supposed to do with toddlers and babies and all the junk that goes along with it when you're trying to transport these things? I mean, we lived through that when the street was being paved, which that was welcome, obviously a huge improvement, but I mean, that was really difficult with a baby. This is an ongoing issue. And I do notice, you know, if you go into areas like Birmingham and they have some busier sideways or, you know, streetways, if they want to detour parking, I just don't understand why we have to rely on our side streets for it to be parking. Can we say no right turn or no left turn if you're going into Wellesley and direct them to an area? I mean, there seem to be open lots that I don't know what the plan is for that vacant lot that's at 696 in Woodward that seems to be causing problems by it being vacant.
It's privately owned. It's the former multi-banks, former AAA building, and it's part of what's for sale.
Be much more supportive if that was utilized as parking for this establishment. And then we just had permit-only parking on these streets. And then the other thing is there a plan for the rodent problem? Because, you know, you read on these Facebook pages that with the park and that food source being on one end of the street, and then you have, you know, Maze on the other end of the street, reports of increased rodent traffic on those streets as well. Is there a plan for control for bringing another food source into the city?
Sherry?
Well, the rodent control program, actually we have a couple things pending. One is a grant that we applied for with a multi-jurisdictional area that will address the rodent problem, and we're hoping to get news on that in the next couple of weeks. And the other is, we have been working with a company named Erratico that offers a discount to our residents by contacting them to help if you spot rodents on your property. We've become, unfortunately, quite educated in the likes and dislikes of rodents in the area. And we're doing the best we can to keep the city property as clean as possible. You know, and if you need a packet of information, we'd be happy to get you one. But it's very common that where you spot rodents, you're either going to find wood piles, bird seed, dog food, or dog waste. So we're doing what we can with the help from their residents.
That's all. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Mr. McCutcheon.
I did want to stress that this is kind of coming across as anti-development, and that's not this at all. I mean, we openly welcome this development. Welcome this development. And it's not that I'm anti-development, I'm just anti-liquor license. I don't see what's wrong with for retail. It's been retail 50 years. I already said that. But the other thing I wanted to ask all of you tonight is that if you agree to let this go through, there's a good chance it will be approved. So I want you to all think seriously about your vote tonight, because this might be the last chance. All right, thank you.
Thank you. You're first, then in the back.
If I can just add one comment to this. I know the city, the DDA, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the DDA put some funds into providing some parking for Cork.
It was a joint development. How was that funded, Sharon?
We applied for a grant and received a grant. The DDA contributed some funds, and the parking lot that was adjacent to that property was purchased.
I think given the conversations that we've had a few times, the condition of the alleyways, I think, before we put any more money into promoting a business in the city, we need to take care of what we're supposed to be paying taxes for, and I think we need to address the alleyways in the city because they're terrible. And I know that's been a topic that's been discussed before, but before you consider anything for that and another dime into parking for these people, no disrespect, Mr. Broman, but you know, the wear and tear that we get coming in and out of this east side all the time, the west siders don't have to contend with that, but the east side people, I'm sure that it's shortening the life of front ends on cars significantly.
Thank you. In the back of the room, sir.
Hi, Brett Scott, Sixth Devonshire again. I've heard a couple of people make comments about the connection between the liquor license and parking. And the real connection is not just parking, it's really all of the traffic flow and how it affects the neighborhood and how our lives are impacted by the movement of cars and everything. And a liquor license suggests a lot of transient parking, a lot of people coming in and out of the neighborhood in weird ways. And I would agree with the lady in the back of the room that if you've ever tried to turn off of Woodward onto Devonshire at certain times of day, I need a big hazard sign on my car just to keep from getting hit to make that turn. It's really a difficult turn. So the thing that concerns me this evening is that I sense you're making a decision without enough information to make the decision. I don't know if you've done a traffic flow pattern in that neighborhood. I don't know if you've actually taken photographs or video of the parking situation. I don't know what information you've collected to make an informed decision. So while I know you have to make a decision, I don't know that you need to make it tonight. I think that there's some information you need to collect to make a good, informed decision. Aside from my personally being negatively impacted by the establishment, and I must say, I've gone to Soho and had drinks there. I've really enjoyed that establishment. I think he'll probably do a really good job at this one, but the location I don't think is great for what he has planned, or at least what I've seen the proposal show. I just don't see enough parking. I don't think the traffic flow is good. I think I'm going to find cars in front of my house, and I don't think it's going to work for the location. But this is the process, and I'm hoping that you guys get enough information to make an informed decision before moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Rob, and then over here.
Me again. Rob, 8 Fairwood. Just a question. Has Mr. Perlman already been approved by the state of Michigan for his liquor license, or has his liquor license been approved by the state?
Not to my knowledge.
Does it get approved by the state first and then you, or you and then the state?
Starts within the state.
Cool beans. Thanks.
Thank you.
Evening, thanks for the opportunity. Mark Schuchard, 10 Devonshire, lived in Pleasant Ridge 27 years now. 26 of those were on Sylvan, 25 of those BC before Cork, and 180 after diminished parking. I understand that Nancy's actually my neighbor on Devonshire now, and I've actually been away from Cork for about a year now, living on Devonshire, so I can't say for certain that the parking issues are quite as bad as they were when we first experienced the opening there. I'm aware that the help typically would park on Sylvan right across from my house prior to the establishment opening, so parking would start to disappear before. Apparently that wasn't something that was supposed to be happening, and maybe that's been rectified. I don't want to belabor parking too much because everyone says parking, but a couple of things that always affects. Obviously, besides parking, there's always traffic and the moving cars, which present a lot of danger to our younger residents. But some of the other things that parking issues bring up are people turning around in your driveway. And because all of our streets, you can only park on one side, generally someone's either got to turn around in your driveway to get going the right way to park, or they have to turn around in your driveway to head back out of the neighborhood after they've parked in it and visited the establishment. And some of these people don't always hit your driveway. So it's a little hard growing grass around the corners there. The other issue is generally congestion on any street increases traffic on all the other streets. I mean, congestion Saturday morning around Mays is just tremendous, but it actually drives a lot of traffic on the adjacent streets. And I've seen that rise on all the streets on the east side. I understand completely that empty buildings are a bad thing, and empty buildings with boarded up windows are even worse. But I think most of the people on the west side will agree that empty lots with nicely mowed lawns and walkways and benches are nice. Whatever. Anyway. The only other thing that some other people have gotten into tonight that I think is worth, again, bringing up is refuse management. We don't always do as good a job as we should in closing our dumpsters and managing the aesthetics on the back ends of some of these businesses. And the alleys, behind Cork, and the alleys behind the businesses between Devonshire and Wellesley are actually pretty visible from the street. So that takes a lot of due care. But in a neighborhood where, unfortunately, Mays is able to place all their trash containers right on the curb and leave them there all week, all day, every day, for everyone to see. I mean, if you're Amherst, I think you're looking right across into a whole row of recycle bins that are there nonstop, and where there used to be a hedge. I think that anything that we do with any of these establishments that we're considering allowing developing in Pleasant Ridge, we really need a serious fully accounted parking proposal. We really need to understand not only what parked cars are doing to the neighborhood, but what all the cars that are traversing are doing to the neighborhood as a result of those businesses. Refuse management and alley aesthetics are something that just aren't really being addressed. And I think those things need to be a part of the plan. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Going once. Twice. Close the public hearing. Next item is consideration of the request by Mr. Thomas Perlman to obtain a liquor license for a proposed restaurant at 24242 Woodward Avenue, Pleasant Ridge, Michigan. Sherry, Frank couldn't be here tonight. Were you able to contact him?
No, he did not pick up his phone.
A smart man.
So, yes, that was not.
You can't blame him.
But this
I
will,
know.
but this will be available for him to view when he gets back as well,
This
correct?
will be available and obviously as a packet waiting for him.
Okay. Are there any motions?
And you can tell me if this is appropriate or not. I would like to recommend that the city commission postpone the vote on whether or not to issue a liquor license to Mr. Perlman so that the city commission can consider the comments of the community. We also need to look into the specific details and requirements for parking and all of these things, for the site plan, the provisions of the liquor control ordinance, and a development and operations agreement. And I would like to ask my fellow commissioners to authorize the city manager and city attorney to develop an agreement for the commission's consideration of all of the final details so the commission can consider these items at our next regular commission meeting or at a date deemed reasonable.
Well, I would first recommend that whatever we do, Commissioner Perry not be at a regular city commission meeting or we'll never get anything else done. And that anything further not done tonight with respect to this matter be held here. And since we always broadcast the regular city commission meetings live, that would be another reason not to try to combine that with a regular city commission meeting. But I guess the one thing I join issue with is I don't know how much studying anybody can do to make the people here who are feeling pain comfortable with this type of operation going in at the end of their street. And if someone wants to make a motion to deny, I don't see why that would not be appropriate to make tonight, and it either gets seconded or not, it either gets approved or not, but at least Mr. Perlman gets some indication as to where we are. I would also say to Mr. Perlman that, as Ms. Crutchfield may or may not have shared with you, she went through one of these public hearings and withdrew her application until she was able to come up with a more definitive plan to address the concerns that she heard being expressed. And part of those, turned out to be finding a different location still within the city. But I'll throw that out for your thoughts as well. Any motions?
Well, Mr.
Or is there
Mayor,
a support for Commissioner? Was that a motion, Ann? You can say so moved and not have to repeat it.
So moved.
Okay. Is there support?
I support.
Discussion, Jerry?
I would really prefer that Mr. Perlman pull it off the agenda for this evening. I don't know.
Hold on, let's hear it.
Because
Pull it up to you, Jerry.
I just feel that there's not enough information, as Ms. Perry indicated earlier. I have real concerns about operating hours. I have real concerns about parking. I'd rather not deny this motion at this point, but if that's what it comes to, that's what I'll do.
Mr. Perlman, do you have any reactions?
Well, I am not real comfortable with what your procedures are here. It seems probably the best thing to do would be to ask that this matter be tabled to another meeting. And I will attempt to provide some more information, even though it was my understanding that that would come at the Planning Commission level and that those issues would be discussed in great detail at that point. But if you're more comfortable with doing that at a initial commission meeting, then I'm willing to do that also.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion to table?
So moved.
Is there support?
You need to take the motion off the floor that's on.
Okay. So how do I take it off?
We have someone, you being the maker of the motion, to move that it be removed and the person who seconded needs to support that motion.
I move that my motion be removed from the table.
Do you support Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
May we take a vote?
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Bushy?
Yes.
Mayor Costelli?
Yes, motion carries. Is there a motion to table this consideration of this item until a future date?
So moved.
It's moved by Commissioner Bushy. Is there support?
Support.
Take your pick, Amy. Krzyjak got it.
Mr. Mayor, public comment on the current...
Only from the microphone, Mark.
I appreciate the opportunity. I know it's rather not quite in Robert's rules to have public comment with respect to a motion, and I appreciate that. It seems the sentiment of the audience, it seems the sentiment perhaps of the mayor, that tabling this would not be in anyone's best interest, including the petitioner. Perhaps the most appropriate motion would be to deny the liquor license at this time. That would give closure to the petitioner's request and give him certainty as to how he would proceed with the rest of the building. I honestly don't see how tabling it, I don't see how putting the, under our ordinance, putting the horse before the cart or the cart before the horse and finding information that normally would be developed in the course of the Planning Commission, such as a site plan review. I don't see how any of those issues, no matter how they might be addressed, short of, say, building a parking structure, or building a sound barrier, or building a urine-free grass on people's lawns, any of those numerous issues in terms, or blocking every single street at Woodward, all the numerous issues that were raised on behalf of the East Side residents, I don't see how a site plan could conceivably address those. So I'm suggesting perhaps instead of tabling this, which would do nothing but except forestall everybody's interests in this, including the building owners, that a more appropriate motion might be to deny. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to, go ahead, Commissioner Krzyjak, let's just keep talking.
I am an East Side resident. I do live on Wellesley. This is my neighborhood. You know, these are my people. All Pleasant Ridge is my people, but you know, this is my neighborhood, and so it's going to impact me and my family. You know, maybe not as severely as the McCutcheons or some of the people that live closer, but it's definitely going to affect my family's life on the East Side. One thing I feel like I need to do as a commissioner is be representative of the residents of our community. I also feel there's a duty as a commissioner to represent, or not represent, but take into consideration the petitioner's plans. My hesitancy right now is based on plans that I don't feel comfortable approving because I don't feel are as complete as I would have liked to see. My feeling is I would like to give the petitioner the opportunity to make a more detailed case on this property proposal. I did try and get some residents into the discussion yesterday, just neighborhood walk, and parking was continuously mentioned as the drawback. Another big concern that residents raised was the procedure. And this term was, part of a discussion I had with the residents who use the term, cart before the horse. So one thing I would like to do is maybe put the cart back behind the horse a little bit, and make a more detailed presentation to this commission, to the Planning Commission, and make that decision at a later date. That's how I feel about it right now.
Mayor, take a vote.
Commissioner Bushy?
Yes.
Commissioner Krzyjak?
Yes.
Commissioner Perry?
Yes.
Mayor Casselli?
No, motion carries. I would recommend that we target a date, is a month enough time, do you think, to reconvene?
I guess it depends on, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do at this point, because the site plan review process is under the governing body of the, or it's under the body of the planning commission. So do you want me to go forward with the site plan review process?
I guess I'd like to have some discussion with the petitioner as to what his thoughts are vis-a-vis hours of operation, given what he's heard tonight, vis-a-vis parking, vis-a-vis traffic concerns, and see if we think there's a realistic basis for addressing those concerns to the satisfaction of everybody, or figuring out something else to do with that part of the building. I don't know that going through all the formalities and expense of site plan approval is necessarily good use of time or money either.
Okay, so then I'll get with the petitioner and the city attorney, and I'll work out something to present to the city commission again.
Correct. That's what I would expect. And to manage expectations of Sherry's time, she has impending grandmotherhood appearing any moment now. And when those babies come, she's taking some time off.
Yeah. So,
Same notice,
perhaps,
Mr.
no, I'm assuming you don't need.
It's not a public hearing, Mark, but that's why if we could set a date today as a tentative date, then it will be on the tape and everybody here would see it. What is today's date? How about the first Tuesday of November?
That's not enough.
That's election day.
This room will be on.
Well, there'll be a lot of people in the room. How about the day after election day?
What, John, I don't think that's enough time. I mean,
First Tuesday in December?
Mayor, let me make a suggestion, because this is the concern that we had when Mr. Perlman first approached the city, is that there's a lot of expense and study associated with the site plan. And we felt that he needed to get an indication from the city commission if a liquor license would be issued prior to even getting involved in site plan review and the studies that would be needed. I think a month or 2 months is, for what would be required, would be unrealistic. I think my recommendation to the commission and to the community would be that Sherry and I and the city attorney sit down with Mr. Perlman and at least come up with a sequence of actions that would be needed if he so wished to proceed, and then get that back to the city commission for review, so you know what the sequence and the schedule would be, and the community would have a better understanding of that as well.
And then, Mark, I think I would agree with you on that point, then, that it's probably a new or continued public hearing and probably ought to trigger the notice requirements.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you, Mayor.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I just had one. I'm sorry. So.
Next time, give him the microphone that works, okay?
you have to talk into it.
So are we going to get, at that next public hearing, are we going to have information in our hands regarding hours of operation, parking? It's basically a site, be close enough to a site plan review, or are we going to be here again second guessing everything?
It won't be a site plan review.
Well, I mean, are we going to have some sort of guarantees, or are we, it's just going to be the same thing?
Commissioner Bushy, I hope we don't have to go through the same thing, but I think what I'm suggesting is that the commission has tabled the application further or pending additional information. I think we need to sit down with Mr. Perlman and give him an outline of what that additional information is, and then he can give us what he thinks is his schedule to complete what we need to present back to you. Okay, I think it would be unfair for us to say, okay, in a month, come back with all this information, because I can tell you what some of the community concerns are. It's going to take more than a month to address those issues satisfactorily, or at least even have the impact assessment done of what would be the result of those issues. So I'd prefer coming back to the commission after we talk to Mr. Perlman with a schedule that then the community has an understanding and you have an understanding of what those milestone dates would be.